And today, again, we are focusing on family self-sufficiency initiatives. We have three special guests today, all of whom have been intimately involved with the very special program that is a model under the initiatives. It was called 100 Families. Some of you may have heard Logan Garza when she gave a keynote speech at last summer's annual conference. Logan was a participant in the project and now works at the Literacy Council of Bowie and Miller counties. And Kristina Rivas and Dr. Jenny Walker were both in at the beginning, working out how to get these communities together and get projects up and started for collaborative motion and impact. I'm really looking forward to hearing more from all of them about this special program. Our special expert lead is Dr. Jenny Walker. And I am going to step back and let Jenny start our show. Dr. Jenny, you're open.
Good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to be here on this side of the program where I get to just be a guest. And Jackie's doing all the heavy lifting, and kudos to Jackie for being such a great host for our program. But this topic is a really important topic and something that's very near and dear to my heart. When before I was at Literacy Texas, I was the executive director of the Literacy Council of Bowie and Miller counties in Texarkana. And this entire idea of supporting the whole student came to me out of failure. So I'd applied for a grant and I was denied for the grant. And like I usually do when I'm denied, I requested a meeting with the people who were the grant makers. And I said, help me understand how I can make my application stronger next time. And they said, well, we will never fund adult learning programs. They're never successful. And that hurt my soul a little bit. And I kind of walked away a little wounded from that idea. And I started to really take into consideration what they were saying. And I looked around at the adult learners that we were serving, and they were right. I mean, we had such scattered attendance. Our students would come and they'd be really on fire, and I'd see them for 2 weeks straight, and then I wouldn't see them for 2 months. And then they'd come back in for a little bit, and then they'd go away again. And I realized at this pace, they won't ever finish within a reasonable timeline. And when I started having conversations with these folks, I said, what is going on? How can we get you more consistent with your attendance? Because if we want to move toward these goals, you have to be here. What can we do to help? And what I found from the adult learners that we were working with is that it never had to do with their ability or their motivation. It had to do with life. And life for our students was really hard. And one thing that I say often is when life is hard, learning is hard. When we have folks in our learning centers who are struggling to know where their next meal is going to come from or how to keep a roof over their heads so that their children are prepared for school the next day, that has to become the priority over getting that GED credit. And when I started to think about these issues that were outside of the scope of the work that I was doing, transportation is important, but that's not what I do. But transportation and childcare and food insecurity, all of these things were directly impacting our ability to be successful in helping our students get to their goals. So I really was stumped, and there was a time where I thought this might just be a lost cause. I don't know how to solve this problem because I don't have the capacity in my tiny little organization that has no money. I don't know how I can solve all these problems. And then I was at a conference in Arkansas and I kept hearing about this program called 100 Families. And I made a little note to myself to go do some research about that later. And a few weeks had passed and I dug out my notes and saw that and I said, "Oh yeah, I wanted to look into that." And as I started diving into what 100 Families was, it started to become very obvious that it was exactly what we needed to do in Texarkana. What 100 Families does and what similar wraparound services do is they pull the different providers in the community together to work toward a common goal. So what happens in our community a lot of times with our nonprofits and our faith-based organizations, they're all doing great things, but they're all focused on their great thing. And it wasn't until we brought in this model that everybody started to talk about what they were doing and started to realize that we were sharing the same clientele. The folks who were at the Literacy Council were also at the food bank, and they were also at the diaper ministry to get diapers. And so we knew that if we could just get everybody to come together and start talking, the providers in the community, we could do a better job at serving these men and women. And what we found in the beginning is there was, and I'll let Kristina talk a little bit about kind of the challenges of that. But there were some folks who were a little resistant to sharing information because, we have to protect our grants and we have to protect our fundings. And, some people are a little territorial. But what we found was that a vast majority of the people in our community wanted the same thing that we did. And when we could kind of have an even playing field and level out that power structure where we're not competing for grants, where we're working collaboratively and writing grants together, we found that not only did we have more capacity for grants, we started getting more funding, but we also were seeing a rise in our numbers of people that we were able to serve. And most importantly, we were seeing the men and women in our organizations be able to move toward their goals better because now they had that holistic support system that was helping them get their transportation, get their childcare, get their all of their needs were being met. So then it freed up their brains to start focusing on those education and employment goals. And it was just truly our secret sauce there in Texarkana and in how we were able to find so much success with growth in our program, with completion of goals among our students, and our staff was able to grow exponentially during that time as well. And I would say that programs that want to do something like this, the literacy programs out in across Texas who want to do something like this really just boils down to getting out of your comfort zone, getting out of your learning center and making connections with the other providers in your communities, getting to know them, know what they have to offer. A lot of my work and my research really centers on power structures, and we are so powerful in our literacy organizations. We are people who can gatekeep information or we can share information out. And that is with our students and it's also with people in our community. And what we want to do is we want to be able to be that bridge between a student who has a lot of needs and our ability to find information that we can share with those students so they know exactly where to go. But it's not just sending them to those different places that matters. It's making those warm handoffs. It's giving them that real connection to those providers. A lot of times what we do, which is an easy thing to do, and we did it before we found this 100 families model. A lot of places will give people a list of phone numbers and resources in the community, which is nice and helpful, except for if you have adult learners who are already completely overwhelmed with everything in life, a list of providers that they can cold call is overwhelming. And so it's a much better if we can have those warm handoffs. If I can call up my friend at the food bank and say, "Hey, Shan, I have a mama here who needs a food box. What can we do to get her in your system?" And then we do that, that make that connection. Then it's less of like um, the students are deficient in some way, and it's more of like, hey, let me call my friend over here. And we do that for one another all the time. I mean, I'm always calling, in favors for my friends, and we can extend that friendship to our the adult learners that we serve. It makes it a little more human in our programs, and also it levels out that power structure whenever you can do that. And then now they don't feel like they're on the receiving end of charity. They feel like you're a friend just helping a friend. And that's how we really kind of close those gaps in our relationship building, in our classrooms. But getting your organizations kind of thinking about the idea of wraparound services, or at least having those trusted community partners, made all the difference for us. And I really hope that some of you might see ways in your community that you can embrace this as well.
Thank you, Jenny, so much. I'm always taking notes. I love being host of a Best of Texas because I'm right in the front row, like, taking notes. The first thing that stood out to me, ask why. If you're applying for grants, ask why. Don't just accept that whatever decision is made. Ask the why. Do some research after you get that feedback, and start looking at, okay, who can and who is willing. Those are such extremely important points. What kind of conflict did you get? I mean, what was the resistance? I mean, really, was it, we really don't want to share? And because these are some important points that we're all facing today. And what's your best
Mhm.
practice on overcoming that?
Well, I want to add one little thing before I talk about that. I do want to say that after we started 100 Families and we started to get students on track, we actually ended up getting a pretty substantial grant from that same funder who said, "We'll never fund adult learning programs." And it took about 2 years, 2 years to get it off the ground and get it successful. But they came back and are still strong partners with us today. And so, in fact, I'm on the board at the Literacy Council, and they're working right now on a pretty substantial grant that I think is being seriously considered. So that is my best advice for just being a little persistent in that funding, because you have to fight for your program, you have to fight for your students. Um, and so I will say that in the beginning, we did have some resistance of people, and it was mostly we were selling an idea to a community who had never seen anything like this.
Mhm.
And so I think, and also, they didn't really know, we didn't really have name recognition at that point. But I'm gonna toss this over to Kristina, because she was more the boots on the ground in that, dealing with that resistance, and she might tell you about maybe our probation and parole office, and how her hard and persistent work got them to turn around.
Fantastic, Christina. That's a good segue for you. Hop on in, unmute, and it's all yours.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm so honored to be here to get to share some of our experience with what we've been doing here in our little corner of Texas. As Jenny said, it really, really was us selling a ghost. Here's this great idea, and I really had to put on my salesman hat for quite a while and make those relationships happen. Make myself known, because like just like she said, she and I both came out of higher ed moving into this role. So what she didn't share is, after she learned about this family self-sufficiency initiative, and this model, this 100 families model, she dived right in, learned all the things, we've got to have this, and then she called me while she was on vacation with her family. And she said, "Hey, listen, I know you can hear those go-karts in the background, but let me tell you about this." And, gave me her 5-minute elevator pitch. She's like, "What do you think?" I said, "We have to do this. We can't know about this and not do something, because we'll be doing a disservice for everyone in our community." And again, she had just only been at the local literacy council working to build that back up for less than a year. I was still within the higher education system, but I knew in the same ways that Jenny knew that this was going to be the answer to help our adult learners in our community, and anyone that was struggling in any sort of way, help lift them up. Because if there's one thing that I can say, and I tend to talk about this a lot, and you guys all understand it because you work directly with these amazing men and women every day, is that to be poor in America is a talent. You have to work so hard when you're in that situation just to make it from day to day. So for our families that, have that courage to step into our adult learning centers, or wherever you're providing services, we celebrate that from the very beginning. Developing that culture within our organizations and now within our community partnerships was something that was extremely important to us, because these men and these women have made it their entire lives without basic literacy skills, without, food security, without housing stability. And we want to automatically, in that first encounter, change that narrative with them that no, there's nothing wrong with you. You are actually smarter than a lot of other people that I know to be able to continue to just live every day. And so you've done the hardest thing. You've asked for help. And just like Jenny said, we got you now. Like, hey, we'll call our friends, we'll do this. And we really pride ourselves in our community, within the Literacy Council, within my nonprofit Ground Floor that we grew out of Literacy Council, in developing those cultures and keeping that tone consistent. Because, a lot of us may have come from situations like that. I'm first generation removed from generational poverty. And so I understand that from a very different perspective than some people, like when we talk about our funders or we talk about our partner agencies. So making sure that that's always at the forefront, I think, is incredibly important when you go out to start having these conversations and developing these relationships with people in the community. And that was when I took that first step out, and abandoned my career at the university for the nonprofit life. It took us, that was in the early summer, and then I officially onboarded with the Literacy Council right before Thanksgiving that year. And that was, we were working, Jenny and I was working after hours on calls, learning more about this model. How can we implement it? Who should, we start bringing in as early adopters? Who can I go talk to? And then, of course, finding funding and convincing a funder to pay a salary for me for 1 year. That's all we asked for. We were like, please, just 1 year. This is all we need. And, after that, if we don't make good, like, no harm, we get it. We tried our best. And we were very fortunate to have someone that understood what we were coming, the perspective we were coming from, and he took a risk on us, and he has continued to be a wonderful partner in many aspects of the work that we do in our community now. So once I onboarded, it really was me just showing up at places, looking through those lists that we're giving to people, saying, here's what they can do, or, doing online searches, and just having conversations and working to break down those silos. And those silos were there between these organizations in our community because that's just the way the community dynamic was. And it wasn't because, anybody hated each other, but it was that fear of, oh no, these are my funders. It all came down to funding, really and truly. And I get it. We're coming from a very semi-urban semi-rural community. We're kind of in the middle. Plus, we have this duality of our cities and our states and counties and everything. And the funding that we each get is very precious to us. And you guys all know that in the nonprofit sector, we can stretch a dollar. And so, with that initial threat of if we partner together, their automatic instinct was to think, oh, but if I do that, then I'm going to lose money. Which, in fact, and I can say this. Now is that every organization is in much, much better financial situations, Literacy Council included, than any of us were a few years ago before we launched this initiative and started it, because of the collaboration, because of the way that, grantors are going and the way that the landscape is moving. They want to see collaborative grants. They want to see people pulling together for things. And so again, it really was just me. We convinced a funder to pay a salary for me, and then it was me. Okay, now I got to convince all of these people out here doing this work that let's work together. Let's talk to each other on behalf of that adult learner. Because just like Jenny said, when they're coming in and they, didn't sleep well that night, they didn't have food, their kids are struggling, they have mental health issues, they need to see a doctor, they had to walk to get to where they are. All of those things take a toll on their educational journey. And so sometimes there are days, and I know you guys know this without a shadow of a doubt, where absolutely zero academic goals or work is done, and that's okay. And so by developing these relationships and developing these cultures and the trust within not only our staff with our students, but also within our partner agencies, we're able to help them eliminate a lot of these barriers or help them navigate around them, because learned behaviors is a very big thing. And so we get to help walk alongside them on this path and be the guide. And once I started meeting with other organizations in the community, learning about what they did beyond just what was on their website or their social media or, what was on the little pamphlet, and really digging into their specialties and who they were as a people at their core, what beyond just what a mission statement was, we started to see that we all felt the same way. Everyone wanted to work together, but they just didn't know how. And it was that fear of losing funding that was keeping anybody from making that step across. And so Jenny had brought up the probation and parole. That's probably one of my most proud partnerships that we were able to develop. Because you think about it, the food bank, your churches, after school programs, your homeless shelters, you already know they have a heart for people. You already know that. You know that, okay, we can work things out, we can figure things out. Those are much easier conversations to have. But with the folks that we were getting especially at that time, coming as adult learners to our literacy council, we were getting a lot of people coming out of prison or on probation and parole, and it was part of their those plans that they had to complete their adult education journey. They had to earn that GED in order to fulfill their requirements to get off of papers, is what they call it. And through that and learning more about them, and not only the barriers that having a record can create, I just thought, you know what, I need to go talk to these people. Why hasn't probation and parole been brought into the conversation? We see them as oh, they're the villain, they're the mean guys out in the community, they just want people, they're not here to help people that are trying to turn their lives around, they create more barriers. And so then I just started showing up.
And
Showing up.
And that's it's kind of a comical, just show up, but there's so much power in showing up.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, we step back because, well, I haven't been invited. So you know what? Sometimes, again, you just got to show up. All they can tell you is, excuse me, why are you here? And, hey, but no harm, no foul. You just keep going. And I want to focus on the reason why we keep going. And we have a very special guest with us, Logan, that I want to give an opportunity to share her voice, especially with so much reference to a warm handoff and how important that is. And Logan, if you could share with us, your experience with this model and what that warm handoff meant to you and your ability to succeed towards self-sufficiency.
So to start off with that warm handoff, it so for someone who, because I come from a very rough background, right? I was an addict. I was homeless for a very long time, and there were a lot of times where I had to go out and try and figure things out by myself. And what I had been used to before I found 100 Families was you go to one place, they tell you they can't help you unless you have this, and they send you somewhere else. And they can't help you unless you have something else, so they send you somewhere else. Or you go somewhere and you're thinking, I'm going to get what I need here. And they're like, well, I can't help you, so you got to go somewhere else. And they kind of leave it at that. And that's so disheartening. And whenever that happens to you so many times, you finally get to the point where you're like, why am I even doing this? Why am I putting in time and effort and energy to go to these places to get my needs met whenever I'm never getting my needs met? They're just kind of shooing me away is what it felt like. And now that I've worked with 100 Families and the Literacy Council, and I know that sometimes it's not that they're shooing you away or wanting to, be done with you. It's just that they really don't have the capacity to help you in that area, and but you can't help but feel like that's what's like you're just a burden, whenever you just keep on getting shut down. And there comes a point in time where you really feel like, why am I even doing this? Like, what am I doing? And so really with 100 Families, that's the first time that I ever had a warm handoff happen like that. And it was so unbelievable. I mean, I think that was the point where I really felt safe, and I felt like this is going to do something for me. I'm getting somewhere now. Finally, these people are actually going to genuinely be able to help me help myself. And I mean, it means the world to somebody who hasn't had that before.
That's incredible.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
again, getting that stability, getting those contacts. Thank you for being so candid
Oh,
and
for sure.
honest with us about your experience. Tell us what was the turning point for you? What really just I can do this. I am in the right place, and really just launched you towards moving successfully.
It's funny as that. So to be honest, like you said, candid. I'm gonna be completely honest with everyone. When I first walked into the 100 Families building, which they were sharing a building with the Literacy Council at the time, it was so calm and peaceful and quiet, and I was like, "There's no way these people can help me get any of the things I need." "There's no way." I mean, there's not people running around acting crazy trying to figure stuff out. I was like, it's way too calm in here. And so I was so skeptical because all my life I was used to chaos. If there wasn't chaos, there was nothing happening, you know? And I met the most beautiful souled woman I've ever met in my life. Her name was Brenda, and she talked to me in just this soft spoken voice, and she just asked me and the whole time, usually you get these like pitiful looks from people, and they're like looking at you like, I don't even know how I'm supposed to help you. And the whole time she's just sitting there, everything's gonna be okay, we're gonna figure this out. And me at the time, I was just coming out of rehab. I wasn't out of rehab yet, but I was pregnant with my first child, and I didn't know where I was going to go with this baby. I mean, I was thinking I'm either going to have to give my baby up, or I'm going to be homeless with a newborn. And so in my mind, I'm like, this is like really urgent, and you're talking to me so gently, like like we're discussing what the weather's going to be like tomorrow and what I'm going to wear. You know what I mean? And I was like, and she's just like, everything's, and I'm like, oh my goodness. Oh my, I'm like, somebody help me. I was like, shoot, I don't know how this is gonna work. And even whenever I went back to the facility that afternoon, I had no faith that anything was gonna work out. I was mentally preparing myself to lose my child. You know, and I don't even think it was a week later that they called me in there and they were like, we figured it out. We've got you. And even at that point, I still didn't really have faith in it. And I was just like, okay, thank you. And I'm still like sitting here mentally preparing myself for the worst. And it ended up working out. I was able to keep my baby. You know, I was in this amazing place and it just kept on going up from there. And once I got out, I didn't like, I still had relations with 100 families. I was still going up there getting the help I needed. I was still working with the literacy council. And I don't think that it really clicked for me that like this is real, you know, like we're doing this until I had genuinely made that connection with Brenda and Kristina and Jenny. And I think that whenever I had that solid connection with them and that relationship, you know, that firm relationship where I know these people care about me. You know, I'm like, they're not just doing this to get paid. They're not just doing this for whatever. It's like they genuinely care about me making it. And that's whenever I realized like everything's going to be okay. Like this is real. You know, it didn't feel real until the relationship with those around me felt real, with the people who were helping me. You know, because a lot of times whenever you go into places looking for help, you feel like you're just another person in line. It's just another ticket. You know, you're just another number. Sorry, guys.
Oh, you're
But yeah.
doing great, Logan. Thank you so much. Jenny, Kristina, hearing the voice, and this is what we usually wait for, you know, hearing the voice, the impact of hearing Logan be so candid and so honest about her experience. What are your thoughts, your feedback? I want to check in with you guys and to share out what your mind is going through right now.
So, I mean, we just love Logan. Logan is part of our family. You know, now she works for the Literacy Council. She's been a peer mentor with 100 families, you know, helping people that were in similar situations. But I know I can speak for Jenny when I say this, that when we were dreaming up what this could do for our community, Logan is who we envisioned. She was exactly who we thought of before we ever actually met her. And so having her voice help us through all of these years that we've been doing this now, you know, with routes that we should take and ways that we should talk and, you know, bringing it to our attention. And she did very early on of how people in these situations are used to so much chaos, and where we strive to provide an environment of peace, how jarring that can be. And so those are things that we discuss very early on with any of our adult learners, is we know that this is not the norm. We, you know, we celebrate your courage, and bringing in those outside voices who have been through it. Even with our adult learners within the Literacy Council that have been with us for a while, they step into leadership roles and they become peer leaders, and they become those that encourage and those that support new people that are coming in on their adult education journeys. And we welcome that, and that's what we want. And so, like, again, like I say, Logan was one of our very first quote unquote clients with this program, and she really was what we had envisioned could be possible. You know, when we talk about the reasons that we do this work, with anything within the social service landscape, you know, we want to help others realize those goals. We want to help others make those generational changes. And everyone has it in them to do that. But it's up to us as those working in these positions and serving our community in these capacities to help them understand that they already have the tools. They can do it. But let us show you how to use those tools. Take everything that you have, all of those skills, and let's use them in a different way. That is, I feel, something that, you know, through meeting Logan and getting to, like I said, we're all a family. We're all a family. We've been there when her babies have been born. You know, we are all, she's stuck with us now at this point. She's not getting rid of us. Uh, and that's, you know, that's what it takes. That's what it takes, is to truly genuinely do the work that we do from that sort of place, and knowing that this could all fall apart today, but everything that we have done, we look at Logan and it was all worth it
That's
because of
beautiful.
what she is accomplished with her life thus far. She is just a wonderful, as you can tell, well-spoken young lady. She's a brilliant scholar. She's working her way through college now. She's an amazing mother, and we are just so proud of her. And so, again, like I say, if all of this was just so that we could encounter Logan and she could do the things that she's doing, and we know she's going to do far more than this, then it was all worth it.
That's amazing. And thank you so much. Before I jump over to Jenny and ask about statewide patterns that she's seeing concerning wraparound and self-sufficiency efforts, I do want to ask a question based on the chat. Amy shared that her students are struggling with transportation and childcare. Of course, making this an issue of attendance being consistent. Employers are holding them over their scheduled time. What do you suggest? I mean, how can we give some ideas on where to go from a situation like this?
Conversations. Have conversations. And again, insert yourself into those areas. Don't be afraid, because what's the worst that can happen? Learn about your transportation system there. Some of you are in very, very rural areas. I understand that. See what services are available. Make the calls, ask the questions, because again, that is where that warm handoff starts. We cannot help our adult learners if we are not educated on what's going on, if we don't understand the processes. And a lot of times, I'm not going to lie, it's extremely confusing. Right now, if you told me that I had to get on the bus here in Texarkana and get from this to this, I mean, I probably can figure it out, but I know I'm going to get lost. I know I'm not going to read that correctly. I know I'm going to miss a change and all of the things, because it's not something that I am well versed in. And I have a graduate degree. And
Mm,
so when you look at it from those aspects of, you're handing someone a piece of paper, or saying, well, that it's there for you. If you don't know the intricacies of that system, then how are supposed to expect your adult learners to do it? So that's where you really have to step in as an advocate for them and say,
mm,
okay, you know what? Let's call together. That is something that's so important as well, and something that we are very, very committed to, is we don't do anything for anyone. We will do it with you, because the only way to learn new patterns and behaviors is to see those modeled. And so you have to think of it in a way of, like, when you have kids, well, let's do it together. It's the same thing. So pull them in your office or a quiet space. Let's give this person a call, or go over there with them. Have that let them watch you in those interactions. Have those conversations. Start learning the ways to ask the questions to get the answers, because that's the only way that they will start to develop skills and take the tools that they already have to do those things. So don't be afraid to, call their employer and say, hey, here's what's going on. You know, I know that they work for you. They're enrolled in our program. They're having trouble with transportation because the bus system is this and this, because the employer, chances are, they don't even know, because
mm.
your adult learner feels embarrassed or ashamed that they're in this situation, and they don't want to bring any more attention to it. And so they're afraid to speak up to the employer and to say, can we talk about my schedule? The bus leaves at this time, and I'm going to miss the bus, and then I have to walk, 12 miles to get home, and I have young kids at home. Whatever the situation is, that's putting them in a very vulnerable situation when they're already in one. And setting them up for more failure. Just like Logan said, it's hard to open up. It's hard to take somebody seriously. And you have to be that advocate. So have those conversations with them. Ask them, what is it that you want to be accomplished through this conversation with this employer or through this person, but do it with them and be a partner with them. Because if you take these situations and you look at it from the lens of, I'm here to help you, I'm here to save you, nothing's ever going to get accomplished. You may feel great about it. Yes, I did this or that, but our biggest reward in this work that we do as adult educators is just that we are educating, because at some point in time, John is not going to need you anymore. But John is still going to have barriers. John is still going to have things that come up that he's going to have to navigate around. They may not be as big as missing the bus, which, turns into things. But what you're also doing is you're helping people learn how to work through things, because all of us are going to have challenges within our life. All of us are going to come up on barriers that we have to learn how to navigate around. But all of us did not get the upbringings that a lot of us did, where we learned to be um, to speak up for ourselves, and we learn to look at things from another angle. And a lot of times these adult learners that we have, the only thing they know is to give up.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm hashtag teachable moments.
Yeah.
I mean, and there it is, because again, we're not we are looking at self-sufficiency. So what can we do to increase this person's ability to be self-sufficient? I want to get Dr. Jenny's weigh in, and also to speak briefly on what's going on statewide as far as wraparound service needs. How do we connect the dots? And then I want to return to Logan briefly, because Logan's shiny star here, and I've got to return to her before we go. Definitely. Jenny.
Yeah, I'll just kind of echo a few things that have been said, and give a not so shameless plug for the expert edge that Jackie talked about in the beginning, and that's building a positive classroom environment. And Logan has told me before, when we've had some, real conversation, she said, I really thought you guys were fake because we were so nice and our office was so calm, but that was all very intentional. When you have adult learners who have all these needs, and they are living in chaos, as Logan described it, you want your organization to be a refuge. You want it to be a sanctuary. You want it to be a safe place for them to come. So we were very intentional about, there is no one has a bad day at the Literacy Council. I mean, that was a policy that we had, and we were very serious about that policy. We didn't argue about anything, and we're, real human beings. And so there were times we needed to argue about things, or, my kids were acting bad in the morning and I came in a bad mood. But we dropped that at the door, because once people walked into our office, we wanted them to feel a certain experience. And that experience of calm, safe, loving environment was something that we knew would draw people in who were yearning for um, that kind of safe place. And so, in that expert edge, I'm going to talk about how to do that. What does that look like in your organization? Um, and so I want to really encourage you, because when there's all kinds of noise happening in the lives of our adult learners, you want to be the place that's quiet. You want to be the place that's safe, and they'll keep coming back for that. They'll need that feeling. They'll need that refuge, and you want to be the place to provide it. And then I'll also say, Kristina talked about, really being a champion for your adult learners. And that is so important. If you step into their shoes, oftentimes the folks that we serve really don't have a lot of advocates on their side. They don't have people standing in the gaps for them. They don't always have people looking out for their best interests. They've been in some pretty rough situations, and we know this because they wouldn't be in your learning center if they didn't feel there was something that they needed. And when we could use our positions to be that advocate, to be that champion for them, every single person, every single time, they pay attention. one of my favorite quotes that I use often comes from a brain researcher named Marsha Tate. And she said, when students love you, they'll do anything for you. And when they don't, they'll do anything to you. And I love that so much because I'm telling you, when they know that you love them and they know that you're a champion for them and they know that you care about them, they will do anything. I'm telling you, I can ask Logan to do anything in the world and Logan will do it. And when you have that relationship with your students, you can use that power to get them to that next level of their academic journey. You can get them to that next level of success. So many of them lack that confidence because they've had a life full of moments where they lost confidence. And when you can be that champion for them and you can start to do what Christine was talking about, where you're doing things alongside them, not for them, you little by little help them develop that confidence. Because as Christina said, there's going to be a day where they're going to have a challenge and you're not going to be there. But they need that confidence to be able to navigate those challenges by themselves. And so when we do those little things, little by little, we're teaching them those skills. And just a really quick illustration about how important it is to be that champion. And Christina gave that great example of calling an employer. But I want to brag on something that Christina did, which I think was one of my favorite stories that came out of 100 Families. We had a woman who was about to get evicted from her apartment, and she had a 15-year-old daughter who was pregnant. And she came into 100 Families and she said, I've paid my rent. I don't know why I'm getting evicted. This doesn't make sense. And she was really, you know, freaking out because she has this 15-year-old daughter who's about to give birth and didn't want to do that in the homeless shelter. And so Christina, in her, you know, in her way, walked over to that leasing office and said, this is my friend. Help. She tells me she's getting evicted. Help me understand what's going on here. And come to find out that the apartment was just not in a good, it was not clean well enough that it was really a problem. And so what we did was we rallied together. Christina spearheaded this movement to help her get her apartment cleaned up so she could stay there. As the neighbors started figuring out what was happening, neighbors came in. Before we knew it, we had this woman's apartment in a safe place for her to bring a baby home. She got to stay there, and that is because we cared enough about this person. We could have easily said, "Oh, well, that stinks. You're getting evicted," but we didn't do that. Christina didn't do that because that woman mattered, and she needed someone to walk into that leasing office and have that conversation because she didn't have the confidence enough to do that for herself. And so so these relationships really matter, and it is a lot, and it's heavy work and it's hard work, and you all know that. But at the end of the day, every single person who walks through your doors matters, and they're important, and they're worth that extra effort to help them get what they need. And then, so to answer Jackie's question about on the state level, so we see the correlation of adult literacy to every other challenge in Texas. So we see poverty connected to adult literacy. We see the perpetuation of these low literate levels connected to adult literacy. One of my biggest things I like to talk about is how great Texas has been in supporting early childhood literacy efforts. They've put a lot of money into this. We love that. We'll never say that's a bad investment. The problem is that a lot of these folks who are champions for early childhood literacy are putting books in the hands of children to take home to read to parents that they themselves don't have the skills to help their children with. In Texas, we have 28% of the adult population at or below a level 1. And those are like one syllable sight words. that's where they're at level 1. So if you've got a child in first or second grade, they have already surpassed the academic performance of 28% of the adult population in this state. And it's a problem. It's a real problem. And people don't realize how big the problem is, and they don't realize how it connects to every other system. Our workforce development, if they don't have digital literacy skills, they can't apply online for a job, which is, uh, you know, most jobs, a vast majority of jobs are apply online. And so we have a really important role to play in all kinds of systems in Texas, but we can't do our job to educate them unless they have those fundamental areas stabilized first, our adult learners, the food, the housing, all of that.
Fantastic. And a lot of this is, again, connecting the dots, being brave enough to connect the dots, go and talk to people, make those relationships. Again, don't just do handoffs from pieces of paper and lists. And this is, kind of a framework for a adult ed promotion marketing 101. A lot of business skills here that are applied. And again, we're not saving people. We're actually helping them help themselves and sharing the skills, sharing the experience with them. This is just an incredible impact here. Logan, I want to return to you because I would just be so just wrong for not returning to you. Logan, your story is so inspirational. It's the example of what can be done if a community pulls together and works for you and helps you on your pathway. You have a wonderful group of providers here, from instructors to coordinators, admin, etc. If you could give them one piece of advice from the end of this training today to take with them to make sure that we have more Logans in the world, what would it be?
Build connections. And that's very general. Build connections with your students, build connections with your partners, because that's really, I had never really seen healthy relationships before I came into these programs. Jenny and Kristina have the most beautiful friendship I've ever seen. It's literally goals, you guys. But people like me, people like your students, we don't have the standards that we should, that are going to help us thrive in our education and in growing the stability that we need to continue our education and get where we need to be and be successful in life. And so just being that example, showing that it is possible to make connections with these people, with your friends, with your students, with the people that you're sending them to. It was like they were saying earlier how they treat you like a friend whenever going and connecting you with people, calling the people at the food bank and letting them, hey, I'm sending a friend your way, or hey, I have a friend, what can we do to help her? And it's like, and like the way that y'all model, the way that y'all speak to people. You were saying earlier about how well I speak. Jenny and Kristina have shaped me so much, and they've given me the confidence to be able to speak like this, because coming from my background, it's like everyone's been saying, I did not have any confidence. That was one of my biggest barriers that I didn't even know was a barrier until I grew in 100 Families and the Literacy Council. I was my biggest enemy. I was like, I come from a poor home. I've been homeless. I've slept outside. I've been addicted to drugs. I don't deserve any of these things that I'm striving for. And I had so much self-doubt. And having those connections with Kristina and Jenny, every single time I saw them in the office, they would start building me up instantly. Every time I had an essay I had to write for college, I would go to Jenny and I'd be like, can you please let me read this to you and show you this, and you tell me if it's okay? And every single time she'd be like, I don't know why you're coming to me. She's like, you can come to me for anything, anytime, and I'll do it. She's like, but every single time it's amazing. You're amazing, and I finally built confidence to where I think that about myself, and I think I can do this, I can do whatever I put my mind to, and I can be successful, and I deserve that, not because of where I come from or the decisions I've made in the past, but because of the decisions I can make and what I can become and where I can be, and so that would just be my advice.
I mean, I don't know any of you guys. I should be seeing a lot of clapping and hand waving. I mean, if you needed a vitamin B shot to get your adult ed adrenaline rolling, Logan, we got an L shot. We got the Logan shot today. So you guys, I mean, I just this is incredible. And for our first training series, this definitely was it. Jenny, Kristina, I want to have just before we wrap up, just a minute of your takeaways that you might be able to share. I know we could be here for the rest of the day, but unfortunately, we're getting up to that time. So, Kristina and Jenny, what are your closeouts for us today?
I would just like to say, like, keep doing the good work. You guys are doing it. You want to learn as professionals and continue to grow in your craft, or else you wouldn't even be on the call today. So, you can do it just in the ways that we are motivating and encouraging our students. Make sure you do that for yourself and with the team and those around you. Just like, we said, you all have, the abilities to help empower those around you. That's not just our students, that's each other. And so this was, I mean, I didn't even realize that I needed this so much today. So I thank all of you guys. It just helps to reinvigorate my passion for the work that we're all doing throughout the state. And remember that every day, the work that you are doing and the impacts that you are making, it's a beautiful thing to think that we're not even going to be around to see how great this impact is going to be. So your fingerprints are all over this. You are a major part of someone's story, and just hang in there. We can ride out these crazy times that we are in, but you just remember your why you're there, and I'm just so proud to be able to call myself a colleague with all of you.
Thank you. And before I jump to Jenny, if you
And
guys wouldn't mind opening your video camera, we're going to take a quick screenshot as Jenny wraps us up before I do my thank yous. Jenny.
yeah, and so I'll just kind of talk about something a little bit different that was a result of this in our community because of this attention that we've paid to collaboration. It has really not only impacted our students in our organization, but the entire way our nonprofit sector operates in Texarkana now. Um, I mean, it so much so that people are interested in learning about how we do what we do because it's such a different way of doing business and in a very, very good and positive way. And we're seeing these cross-section collaboration and research and like all kinds of cool stuff happening. And sometimes when you just need a time to be nerdy, reach out to Christine and she'll tell you about some of the research that she's done in collaboration with our Homeless Coalition, in collaboration with our Literacy Council, and all of the different things. I mean, they've traveled all over to Oregon and, all over Austin and all over the place because this collaboration piece is life changing, not only for our students, but for our community. And we're really proud of it. So
Fantastic. Well, thank you again, Jenny, Kristina, Logan. You guys are the powerhouse here. And want to thank everyone for being here. Keep an eye out in your email. You will get a survey. That survey is very important because it lets us know not only how we did, but what you want in the future. So please pay attention to that. If you need a PD certificate, you can request that via the survey. And again, we are here every month. Stay tuned. Go to literacytexas.org for all of your online training needs. We'll see you soon for the best of Texas.